Cheesy the Podcast, presented by Just Cheesy Productions.
Hi there, I'm your host Fondue.
I'm Cheesy.
In this week's episode, we're going to be talking all about ancient cheese.
Ooh.
We're going to talk about a mummy in China.
Whoa.
We're going to talk about an Egyptian tomb
Wow.
and a bog in Ireland.
A bog?
We're going to learn how to make a cute cheese ball.
Ooh.
And of course, we're going to tell our very cheesy joke.
Ha ha ha, joke.
Stay tuned for episode 154, Mummy, on Just Cheesy the Podcast. There's an article from 2014 that talks about a mummy and cheese.
Whoa.
There was a 4,000-year-old mummified body uncovered in China.
Wow.
According to mpg.de, this is the website of Max Planck Institute of Molecular Cell Biology and Genetics in Dresden.
Whoa.
Usually the scientists here say that they analyze proteins and fats in the cells of fruit flies or roundworms.
Whoa.
But in this case, they were actually testing the earliest known cheese.
Wow.
There were small chunks around the head and the neck of the mummy.
Really?
When the cheese was first tested, they found that it was produced with bacteria and yeast and not with rennet.
Wow.
This meant that they did not have to use young animals in order to make the cheese.
Whoa.
Researchers said this was a simple cheese
Really?
and that it didn't spoil or turn rancid quickly,
Ooh.
which made it very well suited for mass production. That data was from 2014.
Okay.
But in September of 2024, new DNA analysis hints at how it was made and how production spread.
Whoa.
According to NationalGeographic.com, they took tiny samples of the cheese that was around the mummy's neck.
That was a snack for later.
Oh, good grief, Cheesy. They did an analysis of the proteins, and it revealed the presence of lactobacillus
Oh.
caffeinorofascians.
Is that really how it's pronounced?
I'm not positive.
Probably not.
But it is a microbe used to produce a type of fermented cheese called kefir.
Ooh.
It was a paleogeneticist at Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing that actually worked with ancient human DNA.
Whoa.
And she wanted to study the fermenting microbes' DNA.
Nice.
It was very difficult to get samples from this cheese.
I bet.
There was only a tiny amount of DNA left in the ancient cheese,
Yeah.
and it had degraded into tiny fragments.
Whoa.
Fu, the Chinese paleogeneticist, worked for years and years to efficiently capture the microbe's ancient DNA.
Wow.
They used the ancient DNA in this cheese in order to trace the travels of ancient peoples.
Whoa.
They were able to detect cow and also genetic material from goats.
Wow.
They suggest that the use of kefir may have spread because fermentation decreases dairy's lactose and it makes it easier to consume for lactose-intolerant Bronze Age populations.
Wow.
And they said some of these microbes weren't the only ones found in the mummy cheese.
Really?
And the team may further find clues to past human activities.
Whoa.
They said that, along with intel from other samples, such as hardened dental plaque
Ew.
and fossilized poop, could reveal more about the interactions between Bronze Age populations.
Wow.
According to AtlasObscura.com, they talk about kefir cheese.
Ooh.
In order to make it, people add lumpy white kefir grains, which are full of bacteria and yeast,
Ooh.
to milk in order to ferment it.
Okay.
These grains act a lot like a sourdough starter. You add them to milk,
Okay.
and it results in whey and clumpy kefir cheese curds.
No way.
Makers of kefir cheese are not sponsors.
Nope.
But if they were, their ad would go right here. Have you ever wanted to listen to the web?
Yeah.
Well, Newsly makes that possible.
They do?
They're an all-in-one audio super app for iOS and Android.
Super app.
You can listen to trending articles on the web on topics that you choose and get them read to you in a natural human voice.
What kind of topics?
Sports,
Cheese?
tech, business, science.
Cheese?
I'm sure there's even cheese.
Yay.
They even have an entire section for podcasts.
Are we there?
Of course we are.
Ooh.
It's one of my new favorite podcast apps. They even have digital radio.
Holy cow.
Just go to www.newsly.me to download it free.
Whoa.
Or use the link in the description. If you use the promo code CHEESY,
Cheesy.
that'll get you 1 month free premium subscription.
Yay. Newsly.
Now, back to the podcast. Back in 2018, there was a pretty old cheese that was found in Egypt.
Really?
According to Earth.com, researchers found a solid cheese that's about 3,200 years old.
Whoa.
This was in the tomb of an ancient Egyptian mayor.
Whoa.
And with it, they said, was the earliest biomolecular evidence of the deadly bacteria.
Oh, no.
Here we go. Brucella melitensis.
Oh, sure.
The Tomb of Tens was actually first discovered back in 1885,
Whoa.
but then it was forgotten about and buried by desert sands until recent recovery efforts took place in 2010.
Interesting.
Researchers dissolved a sample of a white mass in a jar,
Ew.
and they analyzed the proteins.
Okay.
And they discovered this was a dairy product made from both cow milk and either sheep or goat milk.
Whoa.
According to the BBC.com, that bacteria that they found on there would be very deadly.
Ooh.
It causes an infectious disease
Ew.
known as brucellosis.
Oh, boy.
And this comes from consuming unpasteurized dairy products.
Oh, no.
The symptoms could include fever, sweating, and muscle aches, and this disease still exists today.
Ooh.
According to the WashingtonPost.com, some folks in Ireland found something called bog butter.
Bog butter.
And while this isn't cheese, it is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
In 2016, Jack Conway discovered what they call bog butter.
Bog butter.
And this butter was estimated to be over 2,000 years old.
Holy cow.
They said it was made of cow's milk.
Ooh.
It's been buried in a bog,
Okay.
and after thousands of years, it has the consistency of cheese.
Ew.
In 2009, they found a 3,000-year-old 3-foot wide barrel stuffed with 77 pounds of bog butter.
Whoa.
The article said that even more shocking, turf cutters found a 5,000-year-old wooden keg containing 100 pounds of butter in 2013.
Whoa.
And apparently people have been stumbling upon this bog butter for a few centuries.
Really?
A book from 1892 recounts finding a lump that, quote, still retains the marks of the hand and fingers of the ancient dame who pressed it into its present shape,
Oh.
and that it tastes somewhat like cheese.
Ew.
They're not quite sure why butter was buried in bogs.
Really?
They said some people think it's an offering to the gods, but
Okay.
evidence strongly suggests it was a method of preservation.
Right.
Bog butter doesn't contain salt,
Okay.
which was usually used as a means of preserving food.
Yeah.
The bogs are essentially cold water swamps,
Okay.
and their native peat does a fine job of keeping food fresh.
Okay.
They say that peat is compressed plant matter,
Okay.
and it's both cool and contains little oxygen while remaining highly acidic.
Ooh.
And this allows it to act as sort of a refrigerator.
Oh.
So in 2016, when this guy found the bog
Yeah.
butter that's 2,000 years old,
Yeah.
he said he held it in his hands,
Okay.
and it really did smell of butter.
Ew.
There was even a smell of butter in the room.
Huh.
And apparently, because it had a high level of preservation,
Oh.
most of the butter is edible.
Oh, no, no, no.
The celebrity chef Kevin Thornton,
Oh.
who owns a Michelin star restaurant in Dublin, Ireland, claimed to have tasted a 4,000-year-old sample of bog butter.
What? Why?
He said he was really excited about it and tasted it.
Why?
There's fermentation, but it's not fermentation because
Oh, no.
it's gone way beyond that.
Oh.
Then you get this taste coming down or right up through your nose.
Oh, my.
In the Calvin Museum's Irish Antiquities division, the assistant keeper said you could probably eat the butter,
Yeah.
but he's not sure why you would.
Right.
Theoretically, the stuff is edible, but we wouldn't say it's advisable.
Nope.
With Halloween coming up, we thought it would be kind of appropriate to talk about a cheese ball.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, a mummy cheese ball.
Ooh.
You take your favorite cheese ball recipe.
In the show notes?
You would form the cheese ball in the shape of a body,
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of like how you would a gingerbread cookie.
Aw.
This recipe has you taking cream cheese that's softened,
Okay.
and you prepare a pastry bag with a basket weave tip
Oh.
and pipe the mixture over the entire mummy.
Oh, yeah.
I also think you could do this with some shredded mozzarella.
Ooh.
There's a link in our show notes, which includes a video.
I'm ready for a joke, Fondue.
Okay, what is a mummy's favorite cheese?
I have no idea.
String cheese, because it comes wrapped.
Oh.
Get it? It comes wrapped. It's in a wrapper.
Yeah, I know.
You know, mummies are
It's
wrapped.
silly.
It was silly
Yeah.
and a little bit cheesy. Thanks for listening to episode 154, Mummy.
Mummy.
Have you checked out our jokes yet?
Yeah.
We've got a little series on TikTok
Yeah, we do.
where we tell our favorite discarded jokes.
And stay cheesy, everybody.